I am so honored that former Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, would take time to talk to me on election eve. Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Welcome back. It is great to see you. How do you feel about tomorrow?
I feel good, a little nervous, ready for the election to be over. This is one of the closest elections, but even though the polling is in the margin of error, that doesn't mean one side can't win in a larger margin than you think. And look, I think it all comes down to Pennsylvania. I think we win the Senate. I think the House is going to be determined how well President Trump does, because these members are underperforming Trump. We've got a better chance to win in the House this cycle than we did the other two, and we won those. But Democrats have raised a lot more money than we did. And so it's going to be an interesting election night, but I think it could play very well for Republicans, or it could be a struggle.
Now, Mr. Speaker, you built this amazing organization, and as you noted, you won majorities for the Republicans in 2022, and you won a lot of seats that people didn't see coming in 2020, and you won. I mean, you're just very good. You built this amazing machine. What I would like to know from you is, first, let's start out in our shared territory of Central California. Ken Calvert, okay. How about our friends in Orange County? What about Mike Garcia? What about Dave Valadao? What about them?
All right, this is great, because you're right. In those last two election cycles, how did we win the majority by 5 seats? Well, we took them in California. When Nancy Pelosi became Speaker and I became leader, we took 6 seats from Nancy Pelosi just out of California. She lost the majority there. We've always gained seats in California. I really look to the Scott Ball race as the seat Republicans can gain. In presidential years, it's a disadvantage for Republicans because here in California and people don't play there, and it's a blue state. I think Ken Calvert's going to be fine. The seats I watch are John Duarte up north. We won that last cycle. And Mike Garcia. Mike Garcia is just this phenomenal member, and I call a statesman. His district is less than 30% Republican. It's L.A. County. The former Naval Academy F-18 pilot. The guy sits on appropriations. I put him on Intel. He's one of the smartest members you want in Congress, and he just does a phenomenal job. Not a partisan job, but a phenomenal job. The problem is, does the wave overtake, meaning his district being such a Democrat district, a presidential year? But he has defined the odds every time before. I will tell you, the poll I just saw a couple days ago, he was up. It all determines on low propensity voters who turns out to vote.
Well, we want people to vote in California. So often Republicans think it doesn't matter. Donald Trump could actually win the popular vote if Republicans in California show up. Let me ask you, Mr. Speaker, about some of the couple of guys you recruited. Derek Van Orden in Wisconsin, Juan Ciscomani in Tucson. These are two of my favorite members of Congress. You brought them into the fray. You persuaded them to leave comfortable lives. They're very different people. Derek Van Orden, a SEAL up in Wisconsin. Juan Ciscomani, born in Mexico, and naturalized in Tucson. Father is sick. How do those two look to you? I know you must be particularly interested in the people that you brought into politics.
Very much so, and I continue to help financially. I think I did like $20 million last month looking at a lot of different races. Juan Ciscomani, here's Arizona, where Republicans lost the Senate. They lost all the statewide races. Juan picked up a Democrat seat. I think he is the future for the Republican Party in Arizona. You're right. He immigrated here at age 11. His father drove the bus in Tucson. He just loves this country. Tight race, but I think Juan's going to be all right. Democrats have poured everything into Juan and Derek Van Orden. This is Wisconsin. Another seat, Ron Kind, that the Democrats held for decades, never thought they could win. Derek Van Orden came in, did a fabulous job. Navy SEAL, they're coming after him. I feel good about where he is, too. The races I look, this is where you want to look at the beginning of the night to know how it's going to go across the country. In North Carolina, they redistrict. We should pick up 3, but you want to look at North Carolina 1. We're trying to beat a Democrat Davis. If we win that seat, if you look at Maine, Golden, the Democrat incumbent against Austin. If you look at Virginia, Spanberger's old seat, Derek Anderson, also a military veteran. If you look at those 3 races, North Carolina run, Virginia, and Maine, if Republicans win those 3, it's going to be a good night. Then look at Pennsylvania. Look at Wild's seat and also Cartwright, the 2 Democrats. If Bresnahan picks that one up, we win those 2. We could pick up seats this cycle, which I think we should do. In a normal year, we would if we had the right resources. It could be a really good night.
Now, Mr. Speaker, it's funny we come into this election weekend with two big stories. Iran is threatening Israel again. You've always been very closely allied with the Republican Jewish Coalition, Norm Coleman, and a bunch of our friends over there. How do you feel about the American Jewish vote, other supporters of Israel like me and you who are not Jewish, who support Israel, and they're being threatened on Election Day by Iran for a third time?
I'll tell you, I have seen and met strong liberal Jewish Americans who say they are voting for Trump. And it's not like, oh, I'm going to vote, maybe I'll vote for Trump. They are 100% there because they see the future of Israel, the survival of Israel, fundamental in this race, because they've watched this Biden-Harris administration flip on the support of Israel, deny them what they need to actually carry out to protect themselves and security. And I'll tell you, I just came back from Dubai a couple weeks ago, giving a speech, talking to other leaders in the Middle East. They want President Trump to win. And I'm talking both sides of the aisle in the Middle East, because they believe stability will happen in the Middle East. It will be a calmer place. There'll be less war. And I think they're fundamentally right.
You know, we're on right now in Detroit, big audience in Detroit. And it's a very Arab American audience and demographic, far more than other markets across the United States. But I asked the former president, maybe 2 times back, he was on the program, why are you getting 41% of the Arab American vote? Kamala Harris getting 41%, because they want peace. Have you seen that in your numbers as well, that it's not just Jewish Americans, it's Arab Americans?
It is. And this is the part of being a statesman to be president. How do you bring both sides together? Remember, President Trump brought Abraham Accords. They brought some peace into the Middle East, and that's respect on Arabs and Israel as well. That's a unique place to be, the respect for one another and the ability to get along with one another. That's what Trump brings the chaos down, can look for a future that has peace in it and prosperity for all sides. That's why people are going both. And when you look to Michigan, 100,000 votes can determine the outcome of Michigan. And it's unique that the president can walk in, get the support of Jewish members who have never supported him before, and get Arabs to endorse him at the same time, which you watch the mayor and others. I think Michigan is a critical place, not just for the presidential, but the Senate and the House. We've got 2 seats there we can pick up. Slotkin is now running for the Senate, a tight race with Rogers, but you also have Kildee had retired. So you got Paul Young, you got Tom Barrett. I believe Republicans in the House could pick up 2 more seats in Michigan.
I want to close with 2 more questions, Mr. Speaker. Mike Lawler is one of my favorite guys. He was with you in your corner. He's a fighter. What do you think about Mike Lawler?
Mike Lawler is going to win. He's going to defy all odds. This is the guy who represents his district. Remember, Mike Lawler beat the DCCC chair, something that has not happened in 46 years. His constituencies makes up of Soros and the Clintons. This is a guy who is a statement, who works on both sides. He even got, here he is, that you had Biden early in his presidential is going to go to take on Lawler in his district. He walks in, he says, this Lawler guy works so dang hard. He's not one of the crazies. He gets praises on both sides of the aisle because that's just how good he is. They have thrown all the money they can at him. Lawler is going to win that race, and Lawler, I think, has a very bright future.
Last question. You and I have been I'm not in California anymore. You live there. The Los Angeles Times would not endorse Kamala Harris. The Los Angeles Times would not endorse Kamala Harris. How surprised were you when that happened?
It was unbelievable, surprising, but you know what? It continued on. The Washington Post in Minnesota as well. A non-endorsement of Harris from a newspaper like that is an endorsement of Trump. That just shows this race how close it is, that these papers can even see that they can't even endorse Harris, her home state. She lives in Southern California. That was probably the biggest slap in the face of anything to tell you. And I leave the voters with this. She has spent more than $1 billion. And I don't say this facetiously, I'm serious. Name me the 3 things that she says she'll do if she wins. I can't name them. I don't know what they are. She doesn't know the direction of where she would even go.
You are so right. Kevin McCarthy, always pleasure to see you, speak with you. And Mr. Speaker, thank you for joining me on Election Eve.